Hello, and welcome to TCN's Cloudcast, where we explore the latest trends and innovations in the contact center industry. Today, we're thrilled to have Jeff Toister, the Service Culture Guide, here to share key insights into service and its role in businesses today. Jeff is a dynamic keynote speaker who TCN had the pleasure of speaking at their recent C3 user conference. Global Gurus has ranked him among the top 30 customer experience professionals in the world. He is a best-selling author of five customer service books, and more than 5 million people have taken one of Jeff's customer service foundation courses on LinkedIn. Welcome to Cloudcast, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Spencer. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so glad to have you here on the podcast. We had a great time with you at C3, and it's fantastic having you here with us. I wanted to actually ask you, how was your experience at three C3 with the TCN, and how do you feel your keynote went?
Well, just seeing you again, it's kind of like a little reunion. I think it's about a month after C3. And let me put it this way. I was at another contact center event last week, and there were a few people there that I'd also met at C3, and they were still buzzing about your event. So that's I think is a really good sign. I enjoyed the setting. It was beautiful out in the Utah desert. I enjoyed the conference, the setup, the energy was phenomenal. And I appreciate you bringing a good audience for me. When the audience brings good energy, they're there to learn and have fun. It makes my job easy. So thank you for all of that. I definitely had a great time.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you for being an amazing speaker. I mean, obviously our audience loved you, and that we have you back here today to talk a little bit more about customer service because we just didn't get enough of you. So, I'd like to hop right in and talk a little bit about AI. I know that your most recent book, I've loved reading it. So first of all, great job on your book,
Thank you.
and it's talking a lot about AI, and we're seeing AI handle more routine tasks than ever. And I want to know why do you feel that now was the right time to write a book specifically about the skills AI can't replace?
So I think for your listeners who are wondering, did I write another book about technology? Just to clarify, my book was called Human Service, The Skills AI Can't Replace. And I really wrote it, one, because it's such a hot topic, AI, but when I talk to customer service leaders, particularly in the contact center, they're worried about where do humans fit into this? And what will be the role of AI? What will be the role of our human agents in the future? When I started the project, I realized I had been researching this topic of AI and automation for about 8 years. So I had all these interviews, all these case studies, all these, I think, really interesting best and worst practices gathered already. So I've been building this. And then the thing that really drove me was talking to contact center leaders who are being mandated to use AI in some way, and they just don't know where to start. And where to start is, what do I automate? What do I call it, what do I humanize? And when I talk to leaders that need guidance, as the service culture guide, I think that's my role, is to see if I can add some clarity. So that's really what drove me to write the book, and why I think that the timing seems to have worked out so far.
No, that's great. I'm glad to hear, a little bit of the backstory of, what brought you to write the book and it's so I feel that background and the research and the interviews and I mean, it just shows that, how in depth you were able to be in this topic and to write on that. And I mean, customer service is something that everyone deals with almost every day, right? From going to work and talking to your employees or your boss. I mean, that can have a customer service aspect to it. And even, when you get your coffee in the morning, when you are at a drive-through, anything really, can be a customer service experience. And so this can play into so many parts of our lives. And obviously, we're here to talk about, how customer service and human service plays into businesses. And in that book that you wrote, you had, three core skills that you mentioned, right? Connection, understanding, and advocacy. Could you explain for our listeners a little bit more of what this means in customer service?
Sure. I think it's easy to think of these skills as generally following the path of a typical interaction. So connection is rapport. It's how do we make our customers feel welcome? How do we make our customers feel like they can trust the service that we're about to provide? In contact centers, that means that the customer says, "Hey, I'm ready to listen to your solutions. I'm in your hands." In person, it's a lot easier. You can see the customer's physical demeanor change. They become more positive. Their body language it relaxes. So that's the first core skill, just building that relationship between the customer and the employee. Understanding means for most of us that's listening, or if we're talking about written channels, that's reading comprehension. But it's not just understanding what the person's asking for. It's diving a little bit deeper to decipher what is this customer trying to do and how is this customer feeling in the moment? Because if I can understand the customer's intent, I can help them get there. And if I understand how the customer's feeling, I can address those emotions, whether it's they're upset, maybe I can help them feel better, or maybe they're in a good mood and I just want to keep that good mood going. So I want to be part of a good experience. The last one, advocacy, is really what are we doing for the customer? And I think that's one of the biggest differentiators in customer service. So much of the service we see is just processing and transaction. It's moving people through the queue, answering the call, getting off the call, moving on to the next one, etc. Advocacy really means I'm actively trying to help my customer have a better experience. And in particular, the situations where this really matters is that edge case. Something's different or it's unusual or unexpected. Will that employee really work to help that customer have a better experience? That's advocacy. So if you think about the flow of a typical contact, we build that relationship up front, we understand their needs, and then we're acting to help that customer have a better experience. That's connection, understanding, and advocacy.
And sorry, while you were talking, I was just curious, have you seen in your time looking into this topic a driver or anything that's making it so that certain businesses or employees are drawn to the I want to help my customers have a good experience versus I just want to get them through the queue? Like what's motivating those two different behaviors?
It's really intent. Our default setting as humans is transactional. So if I work in an organization where there's a clear customer experience vision and I can buy into that from day one, then all of a sudden my intent changes from just doing what I'm told to do to actively helping my customer have a better experience. And then those skills become natural. I'm trying to connect with you. I want to understand your needs. And of course, I'm working on your behalf. Absent a clear customer experience vision, then contact center agents are really just told, here's our policy, here's our procedure, here's the workflow. They're given transactional level training. Their performance is measured at a transactional level. Here's how long that call took. Here's how many emails you sent. Here's whether or not you hit the 27 points on our quality assurance form. It's all transactional stuff. So you will get very transactional behavior from your agents. Those are the two big, I think that's really the biggest thing that separates that transactional agent from that truly human agent is what kind of culture are we building in the contact center? Is it customer focused or is it focused on compliance and transactions?
Yeah, I think that that can be a really big struggle for a lot of businesses is right. They want the high efficiency. They want to pump people through and they're trying to complete as many transactions as possible, right? And I mean that it makes sense for a business. Um, I if the company is driving the employees or the contact center agents towards those transactional interactions, what can the employees do as individuals to maybe not push back, right? You don't want to fight the policy, you don't want to fight your organization, but how can they still provide a good human customer experience with those drivers behind them, pushing them towards the transactional based interactions?
Well, I think Spencer, we first have to acknowledge it's really hard to be that employee because your boss is monitoring you for transactional compliance. Your coworkers are transactional. Like your whole environment's transactional. That's what's rewarded. It's mentally exhausting to work in that type of environment when you have a bigger vision. But there are things that employees can do. I think one is to start every interaction with the intent, I'm going to help this customer do better. Um, Even in that little moment, I worked with one client where they were just getting hammered with contacts. The queue was up to an hour long for phone calls. Sometimes people are waiting that long, and focusing on the team to just let's help the customer in front of you be better off at the end of the call than they were in the beginning. That's all we did. That was the mindset. Their average queue length was cut in half almost immediately. And it was partly because the agents didn't realize they were so stressed out about the queue that they were not listening to customers. They were missing needs. They were causing a lot of callbacks. And so just starting with that intent, I'm going to help this customer be better off, that already changes the game. Now, as an agent, you will probably, in this environment you described, run up against policies that don't make sense, broken products, other departments not doing their job. This is where it really gets difficult. And when I talk to agents, I think in the short term who are successful, they find ways through the bureaucracy. They have that buddy in operations, or they know that person out in the warehouse, or they understand how the policy works, and they also understand where the cracks are. And they work that when they need to get results for their customers. I've been that agent before. It can get a lot done in the short term, but I will also tell you over the long run, it's exhausting if you have to do that too much and not just in a special circumstance. So you ask a tough question. I think agents can be successful short term. Over the long term, most agents who really are truly driven by the customer and find themselves in that environment probably look for another job.
Yeah, that's really rough. Um, I think that the solution almost sounds like the business needs to take the human centered approach. And the employees obviously need to do their part, but it sounds largely driven by the businesses. But
It
um,
is, and I'll also say that for contact center leaders, this is where a better understanding of the business can really help refine the approach. So, the example I gave you earlier, I think the contact center leader didn't realize that agents not listening was driving half the volume with all these well, that's a real simple solution, but what that leader was doing, she felt that she was understaffed, and she was. But she didn't know how to ask for more staffing. She would go to senior leaders who were just cutting the budget for the whole company and saying, "Can we hire more people?" Which sounds like, "Hey, I know we're cutting the budget. Can we spend more money?" That's a terrible proposition, right? And
yeah,
and I think as leaders, we have to get better at articulating the value that we're bringing. And over spending some time with this leader, she was going to leaders and saying, look, I think for this investment in more staff, this is the return that we're going to get. And she had to do a lot of work to build a business case, but presenting a business case resulted in staffing. She was frustrated that product wasn't listening, but she was going to the product team and saying, hey, we're getting a bunch of calls. Well, that's not actionable. So instead, she rounded up, we're getting 10% of our volume from this specific issue, and she'd bring that volume data to the product team and then sit down and listen to a few calls that exemplify the issue. So we've got data, and we also have story listening to the calls from the customer. That's what got product's attention. And then they prioritized the fixes that had the biggest impact on their customers because she brought data and brought stories with it. So I think when we focus on the business, if we're truly business focused, leaders have to stop being transactional, and they have to be the ones that are driving the impact on the business.
thank you for that. Talking about leaders and the agents as well. This question I would kind of want to focus on both of them. Going back to the connection and understanding and advocacy, right? Which of these do you think that contact center agents and also the leaders struggle the most with when they're forced to, compete with efficiency, the efficiency of an AI bot, right? We're talking about AI here.
I don't think there's any one that they struggle the most with. I think they all tend to go together. If I'm taking a human-focused approach to my customer, think about how you engage with your friends, right? It's you naturally connect with your friends. You're glad to see them. If you're a good friend, you're listening carefully. You understand your friends if they're especially if they're going through something challenging, and you want your friends to do well, right?
Right.
Those are human skills. We naturally have them. I think what happens is when I'm not using those skills, I tend to not use all of them. I'm taking that transactional approach. It's like you're the next person, you're the next caller, you're the next email, the next ticket, and I'm just trying to run through it and get to the one after that. So for me, really, it's am I taking a human mindset or a robot mindset? And I think that's one of the interesting places when we compare to AI. There's a lot of things that AI can do really, really efficiently. There's a lot of things that humans do really well. That robo-human is kind of the worst middle ground. It's the person who doesn't have the efficiency capabilities of AI, and they're not using their human skills either. And they cost a lot more than AI. So those are I think we need to eliminate those agents and figure out a better balance. That this is the stuff that makes sense to automate. We don't need a lot of human skills here. And this is the stuff that we need a real human. But the employee that's getting paid who's not using human skills, that's we really need to do without that agent.
Gotcha. Well, and with that, figuring out the connection and the efficiency and, figuring out where each of those skill sets lie, how do you scale that connection? How do you, when you have a high volume contact center, how you talked about the script, how do you have someone that, it works well efficiently without becoming, robotic?
So scale is definitely difficult because the more people you add to an organization, that's all of these different personalities, they different ways of doing things. How do you build a culture around everybody being human? And it's something I've studied quite a bit. And for me, culture, when I see high performing cultures, it starts with a very clear North Star, what I call a customer experience vision. It could be a company mission, purpose, statement, brand promise. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's a single statement that acts as a shared definition of an outstanding experience that everybody can get behind. So everybody on your team has the same understanding of what they're trying to do for the customer. So that vision really drives everything. It drives the intent. The second step in that process then is designing the way we serve customers to fit that vision. So something as simple as the way agents might answer the phone for an inbound phone call. Do they answer the phone with a scripted greeting that makes them sound like a robot? Or are they given some guidelines for, in general, here's what a good greeting should sound like, but add your own personality to it so that it sounds like you're a real person on the phone. The way that we design our quality assurance, for example, I've seen quality assurance guides that are 37 items long. Your employee is going to sound like a robot going through a checklist when they're trying to hit 37 things on every single phone call. On the flip side, I've seen guides with as few as five, but the five are guidelines for these are results we're trying to achieve. Build rapport, understand their needs, make sure the information is correct, follow the correct policy, try to get them a good outcome. I mean, those are very, very broad guidelines, but it also allows agents to use their own personality within a framework. I think the last piece then is how do we execute? And what I mean by that is, uh, how do we train our agents? How do we coach our agents? How do we guide our agents? I take part, even as a customer, in a lot of phone calls, and always in the back of my mind, whether it's a phone call, an email, a chat session, I'm always wondering, is this the norm? Because there's some awful, awful contacts out there, and I'd be willing to bet money that this is what normally happens, which means that there's a leader that is either okay with it or they're not doing their job of monitoring and coaching and guiding agents. So scale is, it takes a lot of work, but it's possible if we have clarity throughout the entire process.
I I really liked what you said in several parts of this because it hit home, right? Initially, you talked about right the script where they're sounding robotic because they have to say exactly what's on the script, and some of the best and fastest interactions I've had with customer service agents has been, when they start off by saying hello and they try and say something and they mess up and both of us just have a laugh and it feels very human, right?
Yeah.
We are very human when we make mistakes. And not that, obviously we want to make mistakes every time or anything, but right, it just starts us off on a very, okay, you're human, I'm human, we're having a laugh, and it's a great interaction. And I've had a few where I've even wanted to keep talking with them, just chatting because they chat with me while they're looking up my problem, right? They're just typing away, searching things and asking about my day, asking about the weather, anything like that. It's been a great experience. Um, and then, still kind of going on with that script, I have some people very close with me that um they worked at a call center for, a couple of months, and that's all that they could last because it was terrible, but they were forced to read a script and they couldn't deviate from it, otherwise they get, penalized for it. And every single time they would talk to me about it, they would say, I talked with X number of people today, and every single one of them got so mad at me because I couldn't say anything to help alleviate their stress over the situation. I had to say what was on the script, and all I could do was repeat my question. I couldn't say, I understand, I'm almost done. They couldn't say yes, no. They just had to say exactly what's on the script. And it just makes it so inhuman and so frustrating on both ends. And so I think that, you know, obviously there are reasons that there are those constraints put in place, but there has to be some sort of middle ground. There has to be a way that we can figure out to make it more human and more bearable for both parties. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. And it's really frustrating to hear about the experiences of people that you know and how they're given this script and told they have to stick to it. I would wager that the people who came up with the script, like you said, they had a reason, but I also bet they'd never used it themselves. I bet they didn't spend even a shift using that script, talking to customers and realizing how many times they ran up against a situation where they couldn't be human. And I think contact center leaders, if you aren't spending time talking to your actual customers, you're doing yourself a disservice. When I managed a contact center, or when I managed a contact center training team, I would handle calls, emails. I mean, I was on premise. I'd sit next to my agents because I wanted to hear them, but I also wanted them to hear me. And I challenged myself to keep my skills up because I had never asked my agents to do something that I wasn't willing and able to do myself. So shame of the people who are writing those terrible scripts because they aren't using them.
Right, right. Well, talking about you being, a leader at a contact center, I wanted to ask, your thoughts on AI for cutting costs, right? So many leaders use AI solely to cut costs by reducing headcount. So based on your research, what are the long-term risks to brand loyalty when a company relies too much on technology?
Well, there's kind of two parts to that. Let's just go to the first. When I've looked at organizations that are using AI, and I think we're talking about customer-facing AI, right? Versus, um, there's a lot of agent support AI.
Right.
So for customer-facing AI, the best implementations, what I'm hearing contact centers say is they are using AI to provide a better experience, not to cut costs. And when I'm seeing organizations use AI and cutting costs as the main driver, it's not going well. That's where you get the loyalty erosion. And there's a few things that are happening that when we're just cutting costs, we're missing really big things. One is we're frustrating customers to the point they don't want to do business with us. I've seen multiple studies that show that customers feel that being forced to interact with AI is their biggest gripe about AI. And so they're making choices about I don't want to deal with this company anymore. I'll just bring my business somewhere else. So we're seeing an erosion in loyalty. Um, Customers also feel when they're not able to get the support that they really want or need, then they're doing less business. So it doesn't look to the company like they've taken their business somewhere else. You're just getting less of it, which is even harder to. And then also it's having a huge negative impact on reps because as customers are being exposed to terrible AI experiences, they were already frustrated by something else. And now they're frustrated about how poorly they've been treated. They're frustrated they couldn't escalate. Um, and when they finally do figure out a way to get a rep, that rep's getting blasted. And it's not fun for the rep, and it's not fun for the customer. And so our reps are actually spending more time trying to handle these really upset customers, and it's hurting turnover, it's hurting rep engagement and morale, and it's also hurting your efficiency in the long run. So these kind of cost first AI deployments, most of them I'm seeing are backfiring spectacularly.
Yeah, that it's not good all around. I feel like this is just a really hard situation, right? We've talked about this multiple times. Like it's just hard to find this balance between, right, the efficiency or helping people or how we can figure out how to do it all, right? So I guess this kind of lends to, and I know we're kind of running short on time, but I have this last question I want to get to that ties into this. Measuring what matters, right? So in this scenario, right, you're talking about companies that are getting AI in there just to make it more efficient, right? Versus getting AI in there to lend to the customer experience and help them have a better experience, right? So if AI is handling the easy stuff and the human agents are left with the more difficult things, the emotional calls, does that mean we need to throw away traditional KPIs like average handle time, or are they still relevant? Like how should we measure success in order to know how to find the balance there, right?
Well, let's take a side note on average handle time. We are recording this podcast in the year 2026. If average handle time is still the biggest KPI you're using for your agents, you've already lost the battle. You forgot to keep up decades ago. Like that's I think that's a challenge. But let's just stick with that for a moment because I had this conversation just last week. Big picture, understand KPIs are key performance indicators. They are not targets. It's like the speedometer on your car. It says you're going 55 miles an hour. That means your car is traveling at 55 miles an hour. That's not the goal. The goal is to get to your destination. 55 miles an hour times how far you have to go, that tells you how long it's going to take. So let's put key performance indicators in their place. So if we look more specifically at the KPIs we're using right now, and we'll use average handle time. How does average handle time actually help us as a contact center? Well, from an agent perspective, it doesn't help at all because it's just a distraction. From a workforce planning perspective, it helps me understand, do I have enough staff, knowing my average length of call? Do I have outliers? Agents who are taking way too long to get through a call versus the average, or agents who are taking not enough time at all. What are they doing? Are they doing something that's crazy wrong, or have they figured out a magic shortcut that I need to share with everybody else? So let's pay attention to that. I think at the agent level example, though, the conversation I had last week, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. This contact center leader told me they use their average handle time target is 5 minutes. And it's a target per call. It's not even average. Like he didn't even understand the concept of average. So every call, as soon as I got to 5 minutes and 1 second, agents were panicking because I've missed the target. But what the leader also didn't realize was that if I was at a 3.5 minute call and it's time to get off the phone because we're done, well, I haven't gotten close to the target yet. So if this call ends up being 4 minutes, no big deal. Now, for your average, that's terrible. But if 5 minutes is a target, well, then that behavior becomes acceptable. So I think contact center leaders need to go to school and really understand what KPIs are there for and how KPIs actually influence our contact center and our agent performance.
I think that is an extremely valuable insight there. I think that, and this isn't just for contact center leaders, this is for all leaders, right? We need to evaluate what we are doing and why we're doing it. I think that the why is really something that isn't clicking, right? Because we think we know, right? We think, oh, I want to do this to be faster, but why are we being faster, right? What is the purpose behind it? Why are we trying to be more human, right? Why are we trying to implement more AI, right? There's just not a whole lot of people asking why. They just think this is the newest, greatest thing, or this is the fastest thing, and they don't really put a purpose behind it. So I think, I mean, that's my takeaway from that personally is we need to evaluate why we're doing things. And I mean, maybe that is kind of the key to measuring what matters, to getting out of that efficiency trap is to take a second and slow down and ask ourselves, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how can we do it not faster, but better, right? How can we be better humans? How can we provide better human experiences?
Well, and Spencer, you're right. That the why is that is the question to lead with. When I'm seeing organizations that are successful at getting that human and AI blend, they're starting with not why am I using AI, but really focusing on how do we make the customer experience better? And in a lot of cases, there's kind of simple, repeatable context that they just can't effectively staff for, or customers have to wait too long for, just to like check information or to call and get routed to the right person or to book an appointment, real basic stuff. And AI is great at that. It really is. So it's an efficiency driver. But if you think about it from the customer's perspective, it's a better experience to instantly get help with a simple interaction. I don't have to wait 10 minutes for a human. AI helps me now. That's perfect. On the other end of the spectrum, there's things that are more complex. Maybe humans add additional insight. And if we're thinking about when are those situations happening, then we're ready for those. I know one company had a pre-sale chat on their website, and these were customers were coming and they were already interacting with some automation, and they still had additional questions. When they used AI versus using humans, humans would close the deal, leading to a sale twice as much as AI because we put humans in the right place at the right time. We have now created a business case for putting humans in that specific moment because we know that's what our customers need in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's really about that. How do we make the experience better? Then we decide, well, what's the way to make that experience better? If you're starting with where can I use AI, you're already asking the wrong question.
Yeah, I absolutely. I have nothing to add. That's just yes. Thank you. Well, we are out of time. I know that we have to run, but I feel like we have so much more to talk about, right? I know I really wanted to get into kind of the gray areas of customer service, and I especially wanted to talk about, preventing service failures, right? Is one thing that you've talked about, and I really want to get into that. So if we could just have a follow-up episode, that would be a fantastic. I'd love to have you back on the show.
That sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, Jeff. It was fantastic having you, and I look forward to talking to you again.
My pleasure. Thank you, Spencer. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to TCN's Cloudcast. We hope you gain valuable insights and perspectives in the ever-evolving world of contact center software. For more information on how to improve your customer service, please visit tcn.com or click the link below. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes as we continue to explore cutting-edge trends and innovations.